On October 22nd, 2014, I was playing a gig downtown San Antonio, and about 20 minutes into that gig, my upper lip went numb, and I was not able to play the saxophone while on stage. It caught me off guard. It was very surprising and very frustrating. Imagine being on a gig, and you look to the right, and the piano player is looking at you with this really weird, like, what is going on? And I'm thinking, I have no idea. Imagine spending your entire life mastering your instrument, dedicating years to perfecting everything, pitch, tone, technique, every subtle movement of multiple muscle groups, only to one day lose control of the very muscles you depend on as a musician. Sounds terrifying, doesn't it? This is the reality for many musicians around the world who suffer from a condition called focal dystonia. For some, like me, it started suddenly. This isn't just my story, though. There's thousands of musicians have experienced similar struggles. So in this video, I want to share with you everything I've learned about focal dystonia, also known as musician's dystonia. Whether you're a musician or a fan, understanding this condition is essential because it can happen to anyone, and the impact can be literally life-changing. So what exactly is focal dystonia? Focal dystonia is a neurological disorder that affects a specific group of muscles in the body. For musicians, it often targets the hands, fingers, lips, or even the facial muscles used in wind and brass instruments. The hallmark of this condition is that it causes involuntary muscle contractions, or in some cases, a complete loss of control over certain muscles. These contractions are unpredictable and often occur while you're performing movements that have become second nature throughout years of practice. And that's what makes it so devastating. It affects precisely those motions that have been honed over countless hours of training. Now, unlike a repetitive strain injury, which can cause pain, focal dystonia is usually painless, but no less debilitating. It's as if your brain suddenly forgets how to communicate with your muscles, and this breakdown in communication can rob a musician of their ability to play. So to put it in perspective, focal dystonia is often classified as a task-specific disorder. This means that it only shows up when performing very specific tasks, in this case, playing an instrument. You might be able to do everything else perfectly fine, but when you sit down to play, the problems begin. So now you might be wondering what causes this disorder. Focal dystonia has a complex set of causes, and while it's not fully understood, we do know a few things. First, focal dystonia is neurological. It's related to the way the brain organizes movement. Essentially, the brain's motor control areas, responsible for voluntary movement, become overactive, leading to a breakdown in communication between the brain and the muscles. More common neurological disorders that affect the brain's ability to control movement include Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, Lou Gehrig's disease, and even Tourette's syndrome. However, dystonia is distinct from many of the other neurological movement disorders listed. Dystonia is characterized by involuntary, sustained muscle contractions that cause repetitive movements or abnormal postures. These contractions can affect specific parts of the body, which is a focal dystonia, multiple regions, which is segmental dystonia, or the entire body, generalized dystonia, because of the specific nature and how it affects the body. Now the difference is here, dystonia involves sustained involuntary muscle contractions leading to twisting or abnormal postures, while other disorders may cause tremors, like Parkinson's, or jerky movements, like Huntington's, or weakness, like ALS, Lou Gehrig syndrome. Task-specific nature dystonia can be task-specific, meaning symptoms appear only during specific activities. Other movement disorders generally affect a broader range of activities. And pain. Dystonia can cause significant pain and discomfort due to prolonged muscle contractions, whereas other disorders like Parkinson's or Huntington's are less likely to involve painful, sustained contractions. For musicians, there's a common thread: repetitive motion. When you play an instrument, especially at a professional level, you're repeating the same fine motor movements over and over again. Think about a pianist practicing the same scale for hours on end, or a violinist playing intricate bowing techniques for extended periods. Over time, these repetitive movements can cause the brain to blur the boundaries between different motor commands, which leads to the involuntary muscle contractions associated with focal dystonia. In addition to repetitive motion, stress and anxiety can exacerbate the condition. Many musicians feel intense pressure to perform at their best, especially in high-stakes environments like auditions or concerts or recording sessions. This constant stress can actually alter brain function making focal dystonia worse or triggering it in those who are predisposed. Other potential factors include genetics, as some studies suggest that a family history of movement disorders may increase your risk of developing dystonia. Injuries or improper technique can also play a role, particularly if they cause strain over time. Let's talk about the symptoms of focal dystonia. If you're a musician, you know your instrument and body better than anyone, so recognizing the symptoms early is critical. The most common symptom is a loss of control over certain muscles during performance. For example, a pianist might notice that their fingers curl involuntarily while playing, or a brass player might struggle to maintain their embouchure, the shape of their mouth on the instrument. These symptoms are often subtle at first. Maybe you miss a note here or there, or feel a slight tremor in your hand, but over time they worsen. The key thing to remember is that focal dystonia usually only affects the muscles during specific tasks like playing. You might be able to perform everyday activities like typing, writing, or even playing other instruments without issues. When you sit down to play your primary instrument, the loss of control becomes obvious. In many cases, the symptoms start gradually, perhaps with just a bit of stiffness or awkwardness in the fingers, lips, or embouchure, but for some musicians, the onset can be sudden and severe. So how do you know if you have focal dystonia? The only way to get an official diagnosis is through a neurologist, particularly one who specializes in movement disorders. But even before that, you can start by recognizing the signs in your own playing. Many musicians wait too long to get help because they assume the problem will go away or that it's just a minor issue. But focal dystonia doesn't usually resolve itself on its own. If you notice consistent involuntary movements or loss of control, especially if it worsens over time, it's crucial to consult a specialist. Once diagnosed, the big question is, what can you do about it? The truth is there is no single cure for focal dystonia. However, there are several treatments that can help manage the symptoms. One of the most common approaches is physical or occupational therapy. Therapists work with you to retrain your muscles, helping you to rebuild proper coordination and control over time. This process can take months or even years, but for some musicians, it has been incredibly effective. Another option is medication, or Botox. It's often used to temporarily weaken the affected muscles and reduce the involuntary contractions. Now, while Botox injections don't cure focal dystonia, they can provide temporary relief that allows musicians to regain some control over their playing. Keep in mind, though, that the effects wear off over time, and repeat injections are necessary to maintain the benefits. In severe cases, some musicians have opted for surgical procedures like deep brain stimulation, which can help regulate the brain's overactive motor control areas. But surgery is generally a last resort and is only recommended in extreme cases. Other treatments include complementary therapies like the Alexander technique, which focuses on improving posture and muscle use, as well as acupuncture or biofeedback, which helps retrain the brain's response to stress and muscle tension. One of the most important parts of managing focal dystonia is learning how to cope with the condition and prevent it from worsening. As musicians, we often push ourselves beyond our limits, long hours of practice, late night rehearsals, and high-pressure performances. But with focal dystonia, taking breaks becomes crucial. Avoid long, repetitive practice sessions without rest, and give your muscles time to recover. Stress management is another essential component. Techniques like mindfulness, meditation, prayer, and breathing exercises can help you stay relaxed and reduce the muscle tension that contributes to dystonia. It's also important to focus on ergonomics. How you hold your instrument, your posture, and your hand or body position can make a big difference. So focal dystonia can be a life-altering condition for musicians, but it doesn't have to end your career. With proper treatment and coping strategies, many musicians continue to play and even thrive. If you're experiencing symptoms, don't wait to seek help. The sooner you address the problem, the better your chances are of managing it. So let me talk a little bit about my personal struggle with dystonia. 10 years ago, on the date of this video release, October 22nd, 2014, I was playing a gig downtown San Antonio. It was a cocktail hour prior to a Lionel Richie concert. Myself and a trio, a keyboard, bass player, and a drummer. And I had been off for about a year because I was in two different bands in the 2010 to 2013 range here in town. And then both of those bands broke up at the same time for different reasons. And so I found myself taking a break for about a year of not playing. And then I got called for this job, and everything's great. Start the gig out at 6 o'clock. I'm playing. And about 20 minutes in, something weird happened. My upper lip started quivering. And about 30 minutes in, I was unable to maintain my embouchure. That embouchure is the lips for me, the lips around the mouthpiece, the saxophone mouthpiece, the reed in the bottom, the mouthpiece in the top. You have to maintain a proper seal between the two, proper pressure on the reed to blow the air through. So imagine, thinking differently here, getting a straw, putting in some water. To suck the water out of the glass, you have to have a seal around the straw to maintain that vacuum. Now, if you undo your top lip, can you suck the water up through the straw? No. Same thing applies for outward bound air streams. So in my case, I was not able to get a seal and therefore could not make the reed vibrate and come up to the saxophone. It came on suddenly. I had no clue this was going to happen. And so I started playing my saxophone one-handed. And I put my finger over my top lip to keep it down. I'll never forget, the keyboard player is looking at me like, what the heck are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. And so we got to the 45-minute mark or so, and he called a break. He said, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. This has never happened. I can't close my embouchure. Now, fortunately, it was a 2-hour gig. I said, you've got to play longer solos. Let me play shorter solos. And I'm reading charts, etc. And so most of the time, I'm playing one-handed, up an octave, down an octave, trying to play when I can, but then it starts going numb again. And I'm sure it looked weird. And after that gig, I'm like, what the heck? And I learned and did research, and over years, I couldn't find it. And only just a couple of years ago did I learn what this is. For me, it's permanent. I cannot play more than 30 minutes straight before my upper lip goes numb, which means I can no longer play live gigs. I can no longer do long studio sessions. Yet, I'm still able to play for that 15 to 20 minute, maybe 30 minute window. And thanks to the technology we have in digital audio workstations, I can piece together saxophone sections, trumpet sections. I can still record solos for my clients. I do that all the time. Unless I got a real complex part, maybe if I've got a bunch of horn parts and then a solo, I'll have to break it up into chunks. I'll do a section one night, and then the next night I'll do the rest of it. So I can work around it in a recording studio session, but I cannot do live gigs anymore. I'll step into the occasional jam session, but again, 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in, I got to stop. And it sucks because I've been a saxophone player my entire cognitive life, and my saxophone's like a third arm. I mean, it's part of my body, it's my voice. Now, kind of a silver lining on this, well, not really silver, when one door closes, another opens. In my case, because I could no longer play live, I mean, I will be frank and honest, that year, 2014, when I couldn't play anymore, it was very depressing. I was very depressed. So I started working on my piano chops again, because I play piano. And I started writing on, composing. And that year, I kind of started doing some research, and I saw an advertisement in a Songwriter magazine for Taxi.com, a music service where you sign up and you get briefs on how to submit music to people that want music for television shows. And so I pursued that, and that launched my YoPauliMusic.com and my side hustle, my musical career in the sync music business. And since then, I've had success, and my music has been used in over about 120 different TV shows now, 2 feature films. I'm recording solos for my peers. It's been a lot of fun. It's filling my musical bucket. But it still does stink that I can't play live gigs. If I got called for a great gig, I'd have to say no. Can't do it because I don't have the ability. And I thought maybe if I just practice more, like atrophy can be defeated, and you stop using muscles and you start playing more and more. But no, that's not worked out at all. I don't want to get Botox injections. There's a musician out there, a sax player, that has a metal, a rubber type strap around his face, an elastic with a hole for the mouthpiece, and it looks like he's wearing kind of a strange mask. I don't know that I want to go to that extreme. It's interesting. It kind of stinks. And there are lots of support groups out there. There's groups on Facebook for it. There are doctors that still research this. But it's a really unique, rare, and frustrating symptom for a musician to go through. Again, you work through your entire life to develop your tone, your technique, to emote. You express yourself as a musician. When you can't do something you love, it's very, very frustrating. So I finally decided to put this video up pretty much on the 10th anniversary of when I first discovered I had this. And feel free to drop comments if you've got it, you know someone that does, you got doctors you recommend, you got solutions you recommend, stories you want to share. By all means, dealing with something not fun like this is very depressing at times, and it's always good to know you're not alone. So I appreciate you sticking around for this video. I hope this was useful information, and May you have a great day and go make something great.